And our next guest, also a guy who is, he loves the mornings, I think. He's an avid runner, distance runner, and he's also the Auditor General of Pennsylvania and now the official elected Democratic candidate for the 10th congressional seat held at present by Congressman Scott Perry. He is Eugene DePasquale, and he joins us here this morning on WSBA. Eugene, great to have you on the show. Good morning to you.
Hey, good morning, Gary. How's it going today?
Pretty good. How about yourself? Did you get your run in yet?
I did know. Heading out. It doesn't mean we're cutting the interview short, but it is after the interview. I'm heading out.
I gotcha. Okay.
Humidity today.
Oh, I hear you. Well, my tea time is not quite as early, but I'll be in the midst of the humidity sometime this afternoon. So I'll be thinking about your wiser decision earlier. Congratulations, first of all, on getting the nomination for your party in the recent Democratic primary, and so now you're set to run for the 10th congressional seat against Scott Perry. Your thoughts about that? You and I first met when you were the head of the Democratic Party here in York County many a moon ago. You went on from there to become the 95th legislative representative in Harrisburg. You went from there to Auditor General. Now you're here running for the Congress. Talk a little bit about that whole process and what are you thinking about right now?
Well, when I decided to run, and obviously it's about a year ago now, I mean, crazy how time flies, especially these last couple of months with what everyone's been going through. Certainly the issue, look, I lost a brother to muscular dystrophy, the issue of health care, pre-existing conditions. You know, I've done a lot of work on prescription drug costs and a lot of waste in the system. And those were the issues, you know, that were really prevalent. I thought as a country we could do a better job of bringing ourselves together, and I thought my style of leadership was something that could be helpful for that. And then obviously the pandemic happened, and so we're dealing with a whole new set of issues now.
Right.
How we responded to that, certainly needing to be better prepared if and when the next time happens, and probably even more importantly is getting this economy back up and running and making sure everyone has a fair shake at it. But as far as the campaign goes, obviously, the challenges are completely different now than what they would have been just 3-4 months ago.
You know, you look at the 10th Congressional District 2, and you wonder about now you have name recognition, which a lot of candidates don't, but I'm sure it hasn't gone beyond your notice that people are saying this is going to be a national race, that people are going to look at this as a national race. What are your thoughts about that when you hear people talk about it in that way?
I hear that, and I know it's a reality. I'm sure Scott thinks the same way. There's things you can control in life, and there's things you can't. The things I can control is doing my job as Auditor General, how I run, my campaign, how the issues we're talking about. The things you can't control is what people in other parts of the country are going to do and not do. And so I think for most voters here and the large share of the public in South Central Pennsylvania, they want us talking about, and I'm going to stay focused on what's best for the district and how we can help the country in a way that also helps the district. But I do know that the district is clearly going to get national attention. Look, it's a congressional race, and it's going to be very competitive. So that part of it is clearly going to happen.
And obviously it's in Pennsylvania, which is also a battleground state that was key the last time.
That's right.
How, you think about you and Scott Perry from your standpoint. I know you're a guy who's never run on like personal rancor or going after people, and talk a little bit about how you view this campaign between you and the congressman.
Well, first of all, when anyone asks me, I say, look, I personally get along with Scott, and we served together in the State House. That does not mean that we didn't have vigorous debates on issues. The personal nonsense is just that. It's personal nonsense. And I think if the congressman were on, he'd tell you the same thing, which is some of these outside groups are going to do stuff. I can't control that. And when they come at me, when they're going at him, I can't control that and vice versa. And he would say the same thing. We're actually not allowed to coordinate. But I can tell you when it comes to the issues I'm going to be talking about in the campaign, it's going to be highlighting aspects of my life, the issues I think need to be addressed and how we're going to go about doing it. And specifically, how my style of leadership, taking on powerful interests. Look, when people have seen me as Auditor General, look, I was tough and fair on a Republican governor, tough and fair on a Democratic governor. When I was cracking down on those untested rape kits or all those unanswered phone calls at the child abuse hotline, and I want to bring that style of leadership to D.C., and that's what I'm going to focus on. And it's to me, the part that I'm going to control is the issues I want to highlight, and where I disagree with Scott, it'll be on the issues based, not the personal nonsense.
I remember many, many moons ago, and I'm going to share something and I hope I don't incur your ire, but you and I had lunch one day. We had a few lunches, but we had a number of good meetings. And one of the things that I said to you, and I remember when you first ran for and were elected as a 95th legislative representative in Harrisburg, and one of the things you do, you raise the ire of some of your leaders there. You didn't go tote the line. And one of the things that I told you in kind of a fun criticism, I said, you know what, Eugene, you're not very good when you have to carry the water for your party. You seem very uncomfortable when it goes against your. You remember that conversation, or?
I think we were in like Hallam or something, weren't we?
Yes, we were. We were a little touch of Italy. We were having a lunch.
That's right. Yeah.
And I said to you, I said, you're not very good when you have to carry the water for someone. I can tell when you're uncomfortable. And I said, when you're doing the things that you really totally believe in, you're not. And that's one of the problems of political parties, because you were the one who asked me the one time about, it's a lot worse in Harrisburg than I thought it was. And what do I do? And I think I said to you, come back wearing your honor. Come back with, intact. And I think you always tried to do that. I was always impressed by that. Your thoughts on that little interchange?
Look, I remember that, and there were times when I took the party leadership on, and there were times that sometimes look, I am a Democrat, so I agree with the positions more. But there were, and so that's no secret. I mean, people know that.
Sure.
But on the same token, there's style and ways we go about it that I certainly fought with leadership. Look, I called for Bill DeWeese to resign when we were in the majority, because I thought how he behaved was wrong. And obviously, he ended up getting convicted later on, and I don't wish that on anyone, but that obviously happened. But even before that happened, I called for him to step down. I was the first legislator to put my expenses online. There were a lot of issues, even just on rules, trying to make sure that we were more transparent. That I fought with the leadership on. And look, again, let's just knock on wood for me. I win this thing. I am sure that there's going to be battles I'm going to have with the leadership of the Democratic Party in D.C. That doesn't mean, and I'm not here to tell you that I'm not a Democrat. I'm a Democrat, proud of that, and on most of the issues I'm going to agree with the Democratic Party. But if there's something that they're doing in D.C. that isn't in the best interest of people of South Central Pennsylvania, I'm going to fight them with everything I got.
Eugene DePasquale, the Auditor General of Pennsylvania, and now the nominee for the Democratic Party for the 10th congressional seat in Congress. Eugene, you talk about the issues. One of the issues right now, a general issue, I think people are tired of hypocrisy of representatives on any level in government. And one of the things I shared this morning, I know there's news. One of the things I shared this morning, the governor coming out on Friday, he marched in a rally last week. Now, I respect the reasons that he marched, and I respect, George Floyd and marching for, peaceably assembling. And yet, here's a governor who time and time again, a month ago called people, basically cowardly for giving in and opening up businesses and wanting to do that, telling people not to do it. On Friday, he comes out and basically says, you know what? That was inconsistent of me, and it was a real gamble. That's the kind of, how do I want to say it, aristocratic hypocrisy that I think Americans are tired of in general. How do you stay away from that as a politician? How do you stay away from that as a representative? And again, respecting full well that the governor, like anybody else, is a citizen and has the right to express his thoughts on that, and yet at the same time, in rules that he kind of set up, violates the rules and then says, that's it. But he's not getting fined like he's fining businesses here in York County, like Round the Clock Diner, for example. Your thoughts?
I think you start off with you try to do the best you can every day. I know that may be a cliche, but I think you have to start off there. And when you screw up, and I know sometimes you've called me out, I've been on the show. Yeah, I screwed that one up, and I'm sure we're going to see many of those. Yeah,
and I've never screwed anything up, Eugene. So you can, that's no. We all screw up. I got it. No, that's you're true.
But I think the thing you have to do is when you do it, you got to be upfront, honest, and say you screwed up, and try to do your best to amend it.
But let me just interject something here. The only difference I would say is here the governor saying, "Yeah, I screwed up, but I did it." And I wanted to do that, and I wanted to express myself. But for people who are getting fined, it's a different story. And so you say, well, that's two different standards that you're being held to. You get my point?
No, and that's fair. I think specifically on this issue, and I think what happened was, and I'm going to say that I think I was even on the show a couple weeks ago. this thing got way too partisan on the reopening, and I think a lot of people, and I would include the governor in this, started getting over their skis a little bit on some of the language, and that didn't serve anybody well. And so I think that was a mistake across the board. So the short answer is that got way too partisan. There should have been much more of a way of having reasonable discussions about how we're going to reopen the economy, as opposed to fining people and pulling licenses and that type of thing. I think that you can certainly have that point of view, and at the same time say having that peaceable march was certainly appropriate as well.
No question about it. But again, for someone who has said, don't go out there, don't go out there, and then all of a sudden you come, the long knives are going to be out when you violate that.
Right.
And as we well know,
there's no question. Well, take for me, for example, I've put my expenses online. I've done that other stuff. I think then if I were to then go to Congress and not behave the same way, I think people would then have a right to wait a minute. Yeah. I mean, so once you put yourself out there, like for me, I've put myself out there on accountability. And look, there's times when that has, in a sense, because I put those expenses out there, people get to see what I spend it on. If I then say, oh, I'm tired of people nitpicking me, I'm going to start becoming secretive again or something like that. Or then I think that to me is like an example where people would rightfully be outraged at me. So when you live by the sword, you got to be careful because you can die by the sword.
Yeah, the idea, and you and I've talked about this somewhat before, but the idea that representatives ought not be afraid to put everything out there because they are doing the will of the people. I mean, the people are the government. The representatives are only doing their will. And it seems to me that we have a lot of stuff. And one of the complaints during the COVID-19 time here with the governor was there was a lot of stuff that was not really explained well. And you should explain everything well that you're doing. It should be out there. And I will say, and I will compliment you, you've always been pretty good at saying, here's why I'm doing what I'm doing. You can like it, or you don't have to like it, but at least I got a reason for doing it.
Yeah, there's no question. Look, I do think, and I'm not sure what your listeners will think about this, but I do think the model of how this operated was Cuomo in New York. He had those in-person press conferences, everyone socially distanced, but there were reporters there, and he did it pretty much every day. And they made sure that people were staying safe. But I think he earned a lot of respect from even a lot of political foes. Because of how he approached it. And look, there were times, and I'm an Italian guy too. I saw him up there, and I'd see him getting kicked off. I saw him getting annoyed at questions, but he stayed there every day and answered them. And I think that made him better, and I think it made his state better because he faced the music on that. I think we're all better on that. Look, even just when it comes to this primary campaign. Look, I just ran against a very great young man named Tom Breyer, and because I was more the established person and he was the young upstart, people saying he shouldn't run all this. I'm going to tell you right now, I told him on the phone, and I'm going to tell everyone, he made me better because he challenged me, and I think we're all better that way. And I think when it comes to elected officials, you're much better off facing the music and the tough questions because it makes you better.
Well, and I agree with you, and I think putting everything out there, I'd say, like, your mom used to tell you, if you're going to do something you wouldn't do in front of me, don't do it.
That's right.
And conversely, if you're going to do something, explain to me why you're doing it, and I'll I may disagree with you, but I'll respect you for having a good reason there. About 20 seconds left, and we'll have further conversations on this. But your thoughts as you get ready for this race, just final thought.
Look, as someone that grew up losing a brother to muscular dystrophy, and a dad that was wounded in Vietnam, ended up in prison, now doing great. The idea that I get to have a real chance to be elected to the U.S. House of Representatives makes me think, what a country. I'm going to work my tail off. I'm going to fight for the issues I believe in. But at the end of the day, what a country that I can start out humbly like I did and have a shot at representing the great people of South Central Pennsylvania. But it's going to be a tough campaign, but it's an honor just to be where I am.
And how far is the run going to be today?
We're probably going to go about 7 or 8 today.
Okay, 7 or 8. So better you than me. I'll get my 16,000 steps in, but it won't be that way. Anyway, take care, my friend.
Understood, Gary. Have a great day. Hit him straight.
Have a great day. Thank you for talking to us. Take care. Eugene DePasquale, who is the Democratic candidate for the 10th Congressional District, with us here this morning on WSBA.